AV Sears, Beatle people, I hope Beatle people are watching this, because I think I'm going to title this The Unforgotten but should be remembered Beatle record. Beatles weren't on this record, but their songs were. These songs were from Abbey Road, 69, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, 67. And you probably know this movie. You probably maybe haven't seen the movie because the movie's terrible. If you did watch it, you may have nightmares. It's that bad. It was released in July of 78, July 21st of 78. The soundtrack came out July 17, 78, and it shipped platinum. The funny thing was, it also shipped platinum to return to the distributors because it didn't sell like they had anticipated. It was such a big hoopla at the time. All these Beatles songs by such stars as Peter Frampton, the Bee Gees, Aerosmith, Earth, Wind and Fire, Alice Cooper, all people who were huge at the time, especially the Bee Gees, especially Peter Frampton, who's coming off of Peter Frampton Comes Alive. Bee Gees are coming off of Saturday Night Fever and Grease. So it was just a huge anticipation. Billy Preston's also on this, and Steve Martin, who was just dismal in this record. He's a funny guy, did some cool things, but this record's hard to watch. It was actually directed by Michael Schultz, who was a pretty good director, did a lot of TV, did some movies. I believe he may have done Car Wash. So he did a lot of like musical type of things, and then he did sitcoms on television. But on this particular direction, as far as I'm concerned, it made no sense. There was plot lines that didn't end up having resolutions. It was cuts. The music, the Beatles music was shoehorned in. And, they spent a lot of money on the soundtrack. I think they spent more money on the soundtrack getting this thing together than they did on the film. The film was budgeted at about $13 million. I think it came back at $20 million box office. So it was a failure. Critically shot down. Just, I can't say enough. If you like bizarre, camp, whimsical, maybe you'll like it. But with the Beatles music, we can't go there. The Beatles already did Magical Mystery Tour. They already did Yellow Submarine. The Beatles will laugh at themselves. But this movie is terrible. I like the record, though, and that's what I'm going to talk about. The record was cut by John Golden, who worked at Artisan, worked at Wally Haydrick's studios in California, and then he went to Kendom, which is where this was cut. He cut this in Kendom. My Dead Wax says Kendom, and JG, which is John Golden. John Golden now has his own studio called Golden Mastering, I believe, since 1993. His son works with him. He has an unbelievable resume. So I didn't really know much about him at the time, but there's plenty of stuff on him online and the records that he cut. When he was with Wally, he actually worked on the first Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young record. So if you have that with a Kendom in the Dead Wax, that's going to be a good sounding record. Here's the gatefold. And this record was produced by George Martin. George Martin didn't want to do the record, but they offered him so much money that it was an offer he couldn't refuse. And his wife basically said to him, look, George, if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it and may not give the Beatles songs the respect that they deserve. So after he did it, he was kind of sorry he did it. And most of it is because the film was, like I said, it was just plot changes, bad acting. They said Peter Frampton should never step in Hollywood again. This movie premiered in New York City on 7/21 and 78 at Radio City. All the stars were there except Peter Frampton. I think he may have been involved in some type of collision or car collision, but it was mobbed. It was Earth, Wind and Fire, I believe, showed up. Alice Cooper, the Bee Gees were the big draw. And you could watch video of it on YouTube, which is what's cool about the time that we're in. If you read something, you can go to YouTube, you could actually watch it. You could write books today just from watching stuff on YouTube. Now, they invested $12 million in the soundtrack. Like I said, it shipped platinum, but it returned platinum. 20 million copies were sold anyway, or no, 2 million copies were sold right off the bat, and those were in the hands of fans. But they must have shipped so many of them that the stores were stuck. And once the movie had this bad opening and critical, dismay of all the critics and fans alike, that I guess the soundtrack stopped selling. It probably sold more before the movie came out. It depends on the age that you watch this movie. When you were in '78, maybe if you were a preteen, you may have enjoyed it. But I was a full-fledged Beatle fan at the time. And these songs were only 12 years old at the time, too. So, but they were ingrained in our DNA. So to hear them done and shoehorned into these different plots of this movie, as if it was a musical, it was just terrible. It actually tarnished the Bee Gees' reputation as musicians. It tarnished Peter Frampton. The only people who remained unscathed were Earth, Wind and Fire and Aerosmith. Aerosmith did Come Together, which is still being played today, a great version. And Earth, Wind and Fire did Got to Get You Into My Life, which is a great version. And the funny thing was, those are the only 2 records on this album that George Martin did not produce. They were produced either by the artists themselves or maybe Aerosmith's producer. So the strange thing is, why did the other songs fail when they were produced by George Martin? My theory was he could not think out of the box. He was keeping it straight, Beatle arrangement. It was almost like it was the Beatles arrangements, the Beatles vocal arrangements, his arrangements, and then it was other artists. Now, one song I do like on this, and let me see who actually does it. I forget. But it's really stellar, is I Want You, She's So Heavy. Now, that's with the Bee Gees, Donald Pleasance, who was in a Bond film, as you know. He played the bad guy in You Only Live Twice. So it's Diane Sheenberg, Paul Nichols, Stargard, I Want You, She's So Heavy. That's a standout for me on this record. And like I said, it was definitely cut right by John Golden. If you get this record from Kendrum, the sound is beautiful. It's off the charts. I think it clocks in at about 97 minutes total. So it's a pretty long record. Just wanted to point this out. Here's the original Sgt. Pepper. This is a picture disc. And here's an Apple Sgt. Pepper that I pulled just for this video. So we all know the music. We all know the music from Abbey Road. And what they did was they had all these artists do Beatles songs, and most of them did not hit well with Beatle fans. I know it didn't hit well with me. It was just terrible. Now, I'm just going to go over a few of the tracks here, just to give you an idea. Maxwell's Silver Hammer was by Steve Martin, a comedian. Steve Martin had some hits with King Tut. Polythene Pan was the Bee Gees. Oh Darling, which isn't bad, Robin Gibb. Because was Alex Cooper. Fixing a Hole is George Burns. Mean Mr. Mustard is this guy Frankie Howard. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is by Stargard. When I'm 64 is Sandy Farina and Frankie Howard. So there's the back there. I'll just check that out. And here's the front. This is an original. This is raised. Here's the inside. But I really wanted to point out this record. You could probably still get this record, maybe even sealed. I think I have a copy sealed. Pretty cheap. Maybe $25. Maybe open, maybe less. But it's really worth having if you're a Beatle fan. And I think through the years, it's 46 years. I think through the years, I've come to mellow as far as different people doing Beatles. So I listened to it today. Sound-wise, it's great. Musically, it's, if I was going to do a Michael Fremer, sound-wise, an 11, performance-wise, maybe a 5, except for a few tracks. So it's really bad. And here's some of the inserts that it came with. You have that. Merchandise. See the poster. Here's the inners with credit. Everybody's on this record. This record was actually recording engineer, I don't know if I mentioned, was Jeffrey Emmerich, produced by George Martin, mastered by John Golden at Kendom Records, Kendom, Burbank, California. And the ironic thing is, again, is the best 2 tracks were not produced by George Martin. So go figure. I believe the inners are the same for both records, but it's a nice RSO press. It's available also on CD. It was probably available on A-Track at the time. 46 years old. This record's almost 50 years old. But it's a forgotten Beatle record as far as I'm concerned. And if you're a Beatle person, it should be in your collection. Just to have those great versions for Aerosmiths come together. Billy Preston does a song. Billy Preston, the 5th Beatle, maybe. Who knows? But when they asked Billy Preston, what do you think about the movie? He says it's the greatest of all time. And they go, why do you say that? Because I'm in it. So, he didn't mince words there. He was really excited. There's so many people in this movie. It boggles the mind. They just threw everything in here, hoping something would stick, and it didn't stick. The funny thing was, I also read that Jeff Beck played on this record, Tower of Power on this record, Lenny Pickett from Tower of Power, Max Middleton, who does keyboards, was I don't know if he's still living, but a great jazz rock fusion guy. Robert Awa, George Martin did keyboards, Peter Frampton did guitar solos, Jeff Beck is giving thanks, Larry Carlton, Jeff Porcaro, Ray Cooper, Victor Feldman. It's a lot of people on here. You could see there if you want to freeze that out. But all the stuff's available online. And it comes with a really nice poster. Poster's never displayed. Let's open it up, see what it looks like. Almost the size of a movie poster. Well, 1 sheet, maybe a little smaller. You can see that there. And this movie was supposed to take place, I believe, around the time of World War I. And Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play. There was this villains who were taking their instruments, or taking their mojo. It totally laughable. Peter Frampton, his career never recovered, and I don't think the Bee Gees kind of recovered. They were doing main course at the time down in Criteria. I don't know what came first. But like I said, Standout for me is I Want You, She's So Heavy. It's got some good guitar solos in it. I kind of like Golden Slumbers, which Peter Frampton did. Interesting to hear Fixing a Hole by George Burns. We all know, if you're of our age, George Burns, I think, lived to be almost 100. He was booked on Carson at age 101, and he did a lot of parody stuff. He was a singer, comedian with his wife, Gracie. Get Back is a good song. Day in the Life is interesting. Maxwell Silverhammer with George Martin in chorus, just dismal. Here Comes the Sun, Sandy Farina. I think it's raining out here. As far as what the Beatles thought, I believe Paul and George went to see it. They were enthusiastic. After they left, they weren't enthusiastic. They gave it a thumbs down. Harrison said he felt sorry for the Bee Gees and all the people involved. John didn't go to see it, I don't believe, but John did go to the play. This musical was based on a play. that premiered in London. So Robert Stigwood had bought the rights to 29 Beatle tracks, and he hired this screenwriter who never wrote a screenplay, and he told Robert Stigwood that he's going to lay out all the songs on the floor of his apartment, and based on the songs, he was going to fill in dialogue and make it a musical of the MGM quality musical. And that was, and I've only seen a few bad movies in my life. I like movies. One movie that I had to walk out on or I couldn't watch was The Sicilian with Christopher Lambert. It was a Mario Puzo book based on a prequel prior to The Godfather, The Sicilian. That was a terrible movie. Okay, now that's one movie that comes to mind that I couldn't really sit through. This movie I couldn't sit through. So it made some of its money back, kind of destroyed some careers. I don't know whatever happened to Michael Schultz, but they were saying he couldn't even find the camera, let alone the set. He got real bad reviews for this direction. And like I said, the movie ended up doing very poorly, and because of that, I think the soundtrack did poorly. So you can't really judge a soundtrack based on the film. As a standalone, this isn't bad, but it's the Beatles, so it's in rarefied air. So you better do a good job. Unfortunately, what I believe is it was too close. When this came out, it was too close to when the originals were out, maybe 12 years, 78, 10 years, 11, 10 years, 9 years. So it was too close to the originals, and I think that hurt it. And again, the movie was so bad, the acting was so bad. But John Golden's mastering, look John Golden up. He has his own facility. He works now with his son, John Jr., and his daughter Allison, or Alice. They have a family operation, and he has a pretty good catalog. His catalog is online of things he did. So a record that shipped platinum, shipped back to the distributors platinum. I think I bought a couple of copies as cutouts. I think I have one sealed as a cutout. So they were out there, but RSO destroyed a couple 100,000 of them. Probably melted down the wax, So, and to paraphrase Woody Allen once said, "Pizza is a lot like sex. When it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's still pretty bad." Now, if I inserted, Beatle music is a lot like sex. When it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's still pretty good. In this case, that might hold true, but not as good, not as much as the pizza line. So keep rocking. I hope you enjoyed this. But please, if you have a chance, go to YouTube, listen to the tracks that I pointed out. If you haven't heard Aerosmith, if you haven't heard Earth, Wind and Fire, those records charted. I think the Billy Preston charted as well. But listen to "I Want You, She's So Heavy," which is one of my favorite tracks on Abbey Road. So check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have this record in your Beatle collection, or your Peter Frampton collection, or your Bee Gees collection. You can fit in any of those, because they were the main culprits. They were they did most of the music on this record. Even Alice Cooper has a track on here. So that's it. Keep rocking. Here's the cover again. Hope you enjoy this. I'll show you the inside if I held it up long enough. Excuse the glare. But if you get one, look for Kendrum and JG in the dead wax, and you're going to get a good sounding record. Keep rocking. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. We really appreciate it. Please like. And again, if you have a chance, let me know what you think of this segment, and let me know what you think of this record. It's 46 years old. Maybe it's worth another listen. Take care. See you later.